Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today, I have with us a special guest. Listen, she wears a lot of hats. She's an actor in a new movie that's going to be in production in 2 weeks. It's called The Art of a Thespian. She's also a producer. She's a co-owner of Three Chicks Flicks production company, which I want to hear all about that, as well as she's the director of the America's Film Epic Film Festival. I have with us Danielle Harper. Danielle, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. It's a pleasure having you on. So there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover in this interview, but let's start off first. So you're the co-owner of Three Chicks Flicks film production company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Three Chicks Flicks started in January. I'm one of three women that owns this company. It's myself, Jerry White, and Danny Sissy. And the three of us met working actually on a horror film last year that we did. And we just initially hit it off. We all come from different film backgrounds. I'm an actor. I've also produced a lot of projects of my own. Jerry is an actor and an aspiring director. And then Danny, she writes tremendous films. And so she is a writer and a producer. So we thought, you know what, let's try this. Let's put this all together, see what happens. We're kind of a little dream team of our own. And what we found was that we had the same mission, actually, is two components. One is to help women in this business bridge the gap. So all three of us actually are moms. We also, yes, we're all moms, but we also are representing the LGBTQ plus community. We're representing Black community. We're representing Spanish community, the Latin community. So between the three of us, we're covering a lot of minorities, but our prominent piece is that we're women. And we want to create an environment that is safe for women, that allows them to be inspired and aspiring, allows them to learn the ins and outs of this industry, but in a safe environment, and allows them to make mistakes and learn and grow from that without being, knocked down a pedestal. So that's one of our main missions. And the other is actually to help the next generation of filmmaker. We're a non-for-profit, and by doing that, we're able to work with schools. So this past year, we sponsored a film club, and we went in and we taught them from the very beginning all the way through production. So we literally held their hands through pre-production, writing a script, what it takes to promote the script, what it takes to market the script, what it takes to get the funding, and so on and so forth, up until they filmed it. We were there on set with them. They filmed it all on their own, 100% written by them. We were just guiding them through. And then same thing, their editor was a student at the school. And so start to finish, these children did this incredible film. It actually is also a horror film. And at the end of the program, we sponsored their submissions into film festivals. So not only did we hold their hands to guide them through the ins and outs of the business, but not doing the work for them, but we also helped cover their costs to get into film festivals. And we organized a little mini premiere at their school. All their friends and classmates came, all the parents came, and there was probably about, I'd say, 55 people at this little mini premiere that we had for them. And it was an amazing experience. And that premiere was meant to be a fundraiser for the next year, so that the money they raised that night for ticket sales and the concessions would help start the film club off in a more positive way than how it started the year prior. And the goal for us is to go into different schools, and that's how we would sort of start the process for them, get it rolling, get other teachers involved that are at the school, and just help kind of that next generation learn that you can be creative. And with the arts, unfortunately, leaving a lot of the schools, we find that this isn't a world that people are introduced to at a young age. And they have the most incredible imaginations and the most incredible minds. So we want to, take advantage of that and say, like, make something of it. Let's help you. Let's guide you. Let's be, your supporters in helping your vision come to life. So those are our two big things that we're doing. And we are currently in pre-production for a film that I know we'll talk a little bit later about, but we've actually asked 4 of the people that worked on that film club that are students if they would come and be PAs when we're in full production of our big project. So they're super excited, and one of them is actually going to be the assistant director. So we're excited because they're going to get hands-on, real experience with like a much bigger budget film and see here's where we are and this is where we can go. So we're hoping that we're able to inspire the next generation.
So that's absolutely amazing, Danielle. Now I do have a question. Now, even myself, I'm a minority horror creator, and for the longest time, for decades since the beginning of time, the horror community or the horror creator industry has been dominated with majority white males. I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, it still is. But isn't it exciting to see more women, more minorities, more just people bringing their visions of horror into the world?
Oh, I think that horror has turned a corner finally. I think that it's actually the first genre that's the most accepting, if that makes sense. Like, I find that experimental and artistic is accepting in its own way, but this is the first concrete category, shall we say, where I feel like there is a huge wave of new ideas and new stories to tell. And I think that women in this business are finally getting a voice, as well as other minorities. And I think there are so many horror stories out there still to be told.
Yes.
And, we all have these incredible little nuances to ourselves and the things about us as producers and directors and writers. And unfortunately, white men have sort of a streamline of what they do. But this new generation of horror makers is going to just open it up, to a whole new world. We've seen that with some of the bigger films that have come out, like Get Out, and some of the other ones have just changed. They have changed how horror is viewed. And, I mean, horror has its own niche and it has kind of its cult group of people. But I think the whole world is about to get on board with horror because it's being seen through new eyes and it's being told by new voices. And like I said, I think that the minorities and women are going to just break that glass, like together we will conquer horror, and it's not going to be the same story told over and over and over again. It's going to be a whole new wave. So.
Because it's scary to be a woman or a minority in this country. It really is.
It is.
I mean, it's a real life horror story.
It is. We live it every day. Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think that because of the temperature of the country right now and the world that minorities and women have been living in for so long, and in some ways in silence. Sorry. Some ways in silence, I think that we're finally getting a voice to show, to kind of show, like, this is the world that we've lived in, or like, this is the psychological drama that we've all been through, and we want the world to see, and this is our outlet to show. I'm in post for a film that I wouldn't necessarily falls into the category of horror, but it absolutely dives into the psychological side of being a woman. And I think that in certain eyes, it absolutely could be viewed as horror. It is, it is heart-wrenching in its own way. So I think that we are showing horror in the ways that we've experienced it, which, the white men don't experience and haven't historically had to experience. And so this is, like I said, this is a whole new ballgame.
Yes. Now, one of the biggest is I've interviewed a lot of women horror filmmakers, and the biggest issue, but I think it's big for men and women, but especially women, is funding. Women filmmakers are having a tough time when it comes to funding, crowdfunding, getting distribution. Has that something that you've seen, and what are some things that you're looking to do with your production company to try to get around that?
Yeah. No, I actually do think that, unfortunately, I do think that there is sort of still a gap, if that makes sense. Like, we might have a seat at the table, but we're not being heard. And I think that that's part of why we aren't getting the funding that we're seeking. I think that the people that have the money that are able to help us fund projects may not be taking us as seriously as they should. I do have some insight into like what the way that producers are getting some of their funding. I do find that we're in a unique position because we did choose to make a non-for-profit production company. So we are able to go out for some federal grants that can help our company itself, which in turn will help our film. But I come from a background in non-for-profit, and one of my colleagues is a teacher in school. Danny is a teacher. And so between the two of us, we have a pretty strong sense of marketing, but also that connection to the education side of it. And so for me, we each have taken a different task as fundraisers to some degree, right? We've partnered with the film festival that I'm a director of to receive part of their income that they receive from the film festival. So as a non-for-profit, we're able to receive donations. We're getting 10% of the proceeds from that film festival. So we're now in partnership with them. So there are opportunities for partnerships that can bring in some funding. Not necessarily a ton, but some. We also have a fundraiser that we're doing in August 10th. We're doing a fundraiser and we're going to showcase films that we've worked on. The film that we all met on, we're going to actually show there. We also are showing a film that I produced and created. And then Jerry also has a film that she produced and created before we were a team of people. And so we're showing those as, hey, this is what we do. This is who we are. This is the world we come from. And in the interim, in between, we're having the students that we worked with come up and explain what we did, what their process was to make a film. And then at the end of the night, they're going to show their film so that there is a connection to the educational component, but also, hey, here's the side of like what we're doing as filmmakers. And then I'm also running a breakout session for Acting 101. So anyone who's interested in acting or wants to know more about it or how to get in it, or even just like the basics of acting. And that's an additional like $5 entry fee, but it's a way that we're able to raise additional funding. And Danny is running a Writers 101. So if you're interested in screenwriting and you want to have a conversation, you want to learn the basic steps. So we're trying to come up with these creative ways to bring in our audience and say, this is what we do. Let us show us. Let us show you. Let us tell you how to do it. If you're interested, we want to hear. We want to, pull that side of us as educators. We want to make it so that you want to be a part of our journey. And that's how we're going to get our funding. So those are our big steps. And then we're starting to build relationships with businesses in our area to kind of sponsor some of our events, which if we don't use all of that funding for our event, it then turns around and goes into our production company. So we kind of have a few different avenues that we're trying rather than, crowdfunding. We did do crowdfunding at the very start of our company just because we had some upfront costs that we needed to cover, and we said, let's try. And we did hit our goal, but it was a very nominal goal in the grand scheme of how much money it really takes to make a movie. So we kind of have these different avenues that we're trying, just because we are having trouble too. Just like you were saying, women are having a hard time, and especially in the horror genre, to find that funding.
Yeah, because a majority of the women filmmakers I speak to, they are coming out of pocket when it comes to their own pockets to make their films made, which I don't feel like that's the majority of what most indie filmmakers are doing. I'm not saying they're going to come in pocket everything, but I feel like you see a lot more women filmmakers. They're getting loans. They're cleaning out their savings to get their project made.
Yeah, I see it too. I watched. I have a friend who's going into production this summer. She took out a personal loan to fund her film. She's praying to God she gets it back.
Yeah.
But she was like, I can't get the funds, so this is what I'm going to do. This movie has to be made. So I agree.
And that's real filmmaking, but by the way, that's real filmmaking where actually, the saying is have skin in the game. You know what I mean? Where you put your skin in the game into your passion. Mm-hmm. And I that's how filmmaking was made since the beginning.
Absolutely. Yep. I feel like, we all also, as the three women that own it, we also have signed agreements that we each will front a certain amount of money so that we're fully invested in our business. Granted, how we get that money is up to us, but the idea is that we are invested. We are part of that, we're part of that funding aspect. And I will tell you that money is gone fast. But at the same time, like you said, that's your skin in the game. Like you are invested, you are financially invested, not just your heart and your soul, but you are dollars in. So,
Yeah.
I do think that helps push the needle a little bit to some degree. Like you're like, I got to get this made. I got to get this money back so that I can do the next one, and then so on and so forth. But I think there are other ways to find funding, and that's like why we're trying all these different options to see what sticks and what works. We are doing a horror film as our first project together, under this umbrella, and we also happen to all be drawn to horror in general. And so we're thinking of also doing a horror showcase as a fundraiser, where it may not be our films, but it's other horror filmmakers that we know. And that way we can all get together. We can all kind of, bang our heads together and figure out what works, but also feature all of our colleagues' work and let it be seen and let it be showcased. Because as a filmmaker, that's your desire. You want the world to see what you do. You want them to see your creation. And there's no one better to see horror than horror filmmakers, because they're going to see all the little nuances. They're going to be like, oh my God, I got that.
Yes.
And it's like a whole different level. It's the audience is beautiful, and your target audience is what you need, to keep that going. But to have the conversation with a fellow horror maker after they see your film, there is nothing better.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. Now, speaking of the film, it's called Cursed Heart.
Mm-hmm.
This is your group's debut film. Tell us a little bit about Cursed Heart.
So, as I said, Danny is a school teacher. She's a middle school teacher, and they were doing a project about short stories. And one of the assignments that she gave in school this past year was to pick a short story and write your own version of it. And the kids in her class basically said, I'm okay, fine, but you have to do it too. And so she picked Telltale Heart for herself, for Edgar Allan Poe. And it's, well known. It's an established story. Everyone knows that story. And she took that and said, okay, if you guys do it, I'll do it too. And at the end of the class, they had to do it. Like, it was a week-long project. So at the end of the class, they had to do a presentation. So essentially, she took Telltale Heart and realized, as she was writing it in her own words, that this could be a movie. And so it's considered technically an adaptation of A Telltale Heart, which is why it's called Cursed Heart. But it's through the eyes of a woman, and it's set in a time where anything could happen. And I don't want to give too much away. It's not in the future. It is present day. Since Telltale Heart was written so long ago, there's components of it like horse and carriage. So she modernized it. She added a new outlook through it, and it's through the eyes of a woman. So rather than the way that it's currently written, where it's a lot of men that are involved, and the things that they do are very typical, this is actually a woman telling the story, and it's through her eyes, and it's through her own interpretation of the events that have happened.
Nice.
Yes. So I love it. Like, I'm grateful to be playing the lead in it, but I read it and it just like is in my body. Like when I read this, when I read the script, it literally is just like inside of me, and it's such a cool feeling.
And Danielle, you're like you said, you're acting this movie. Now, isn't it hard to be on the filmmaking side and the acting side in the film?
Yes. So one of the things that we've done with this particular project is we are all producers on it, but I am a producer and an actor. That is it. So as a producer, I'm seeking funding, I'm fundraising, I'm telling people all about Three Chicks FLICKS. But for me, it's not. Yes, of course, I want the movie to be made. But I'm seeking it for Three Chicks FLICKS. That's my goal for funding. It will help us make Cursed Heart. But as an actor, there comes a point where I have to cut myself off as a producer and only focus on the character. And and so we're not quite to that point where I do have to cut myself off. But that is one thing that's kind of beautiful about this, is that Jerry is also a producer on it, but she's the director. So she's going to come get herself to that point as well, where she's got to cut herself off and she becomes the director, and that's all she's focused on. Danny is the writer of it, so in a sense, like, her secondary part is done. So she's going to be the driving producer once we kind of go into our secondary roles. And on the flip side, we were the driving producers when she was writing it. So the nice thing about us is that we're able to kind of interchange in that way, where there's always one of us that's on the producer's side, that's focused on that side. We're moving the needle in that way. And when it comes time, Jerry becomes the director, I become the main actor, and Danny is producing.
Nice. All right. Now my ADHD is jumping in, so I got a random question to ask you.
Sure.
Have you noticed there's something about horror when it comes to the woman actors in horror movies? It's either one or two extreme. There's nothing in the middle. It's either they're completely defenseless or they are like a super cyborg badass. But there's no like normal woman in horror movies.
Yeah, you're right. I think that I agree with you 100%. I think some of that is because to portray a normal woman is to dive into their psyche a bit. And I think that people are afraid to do that.
Really? Why do you think that? Especially for horror.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why I was saying, like, I think that we're going to break this glass ceiling soon, is I think someone is going to tell a story that is through the perspective of a woman, but more from the psychological side of a woman, and that will portray the closest thing to, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, a normal woman. I think that this film actually kind of touches on that a little bit to some degree. The character that I play is very normal, very, very normal. Like almost to the point that it's scary how normal she is. And then she's not, right? So I think that that's going to start coming out. I think that that's starting to come out in the independent film industry in the horror world. And soon it's going to hit mainstream horror as well. But I do think that it has to come from women. I think that if men try to do it, and this is why we get the extremes, right? If especially white men, if the men are filming and writing stories about women, they are not women. They are not going to have that truth. You know, there is a point where maybe someone can capture a woman really well, but they're still not a woman. So there's a part of them that will never be seen and it will never be heard the same way. It is going to be a woman telling a woman's story when it finally is a normal woman who you see in the horror film bubble. Like, I think that we are viewed, unfortunately, we're viewed as you're either this or you're that, and we're not in the middle. But in reality, most of us are in the middle, and we may have extremes, but we also are still in the middle, if that makes sense.
Because like I've interviewed several husband and wife horror filmmakers, and they make some of the best movies because it's like you can tell that they're bouncing off of each other. Like there's no extreme when it comes to characters. Because I mean, I even see this with some women horror filmmakers where men are portrayed to either be like, "Oh my goodness, help me," or they are like the most rapiest, creepiest dude you ever seen in your life. There's no normal guy.
I agree. I think that what's weird in a way is that women portray men as one or the other, and men portray women as one or the other. Nobody is portraying down the line. And that's part of what's beautiful about having people to bounce ideas off of and work through scripts. You may have a filmmaker who writes it, right? But then you want someone else to reread it and go through it and be like, this doesn't sound real, or this, that's the beautiful thing of like a writer's room and a team of producers, a team of writers. Still might be one person's creation, but if you have other ideas and thoughts, you're going to create the better product. I actually just went through this for another film that I know we're going to talk about that is a psychological thriller, and my character in it is a strong supporting character. And when I initially read the script, I had to read it a few times to really capture what it was. Sorry, my phone is vibrating. So I had to read it a few times to capture what the story really was. And when I sat down with the writers, they were really open to hearing my thoughts, which is not always the case, especially as an actor being brought in to play a part. And I kind of said to them, and some of this is just me in the like weird Hollywood world, is I have my own thoughts and opinions, and I'm happy to share them. But I also was hired to play a role. I will play it as you want me to, because it's like I said, it's not, this film is not my film. I'm not a producer. I'm not a writer on it. I'm just a hired actor to play a specific role. And they both writers and creators were there, and they said, "No, we want to hear what you think." And so I told them what I thought, and part of my character was written in a very, she was written very emotional, and I said, there's no real. This is overly dramatic. Like, this is not a normal response. Like, if I was a regular woman who was not on some psychological trip, that's not how I would respond. That's not how any woman I know would respond in this situation. So either the motivation has to change behind that to get that response, or her response needs to be adjusted. And they like took that advice and went and like rewrote an entire page basically to make it so that they got what they wanted, but in a more real way. And so I do, and some of what they came back and said to me was, we actually haven't had a woman even look at the script yet. So we're really happy, and it's because it was written by two men. And I mean, that it sounds weird saying it like that, but they just didn't realize until I was like, well, and then they go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that this is how we presented it. And, and so they ended up changing it, and it feels so much more natural, and it's much more real. So I do think that there is a level of importance to have feedback, regardless of whether it's a male character or female character. Because if I'm writing the story, a male character is probably not going to come off exactly as the way a male is, because it's from my eyes, it's my perspective. So it kind of goes both ways. I think you need both sides of the coin to make a creation.
Because Danielle, I'm telling you, it would completely shock you. I don't know if you noticed that, but the average man, I'm being dead serious, average man in this country thinks that women stand in the shower naked and have conversations with each other. Like, that's what the average man thinks happens in locker rooms. I'm being dead serious. I thought that too until I asked women. They're like, no, like, what? Because we base that, that's what we've always seen from horror movies.
Yep.
And apparently, no women do that. Just like no men stand in the shower and having long conversations with each other naked.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Not at all. Nope. Not at all.
Yeah, so if you leave it up to men, that's what we think. All right. All right. So okay. So you're also, I said at the beginning, you brushed on a little bit too. You're also the director of the America's Epic Film Festival. Now, when is that? And tell us a little bit about it as well.
Sure. So America's Epic Film Festival is July 28th. It's going to be in Warwick, New York. It is a 1920s old Hollywood glam theme with the full red carpet, step and repeat, press, all of that. But the beautiful thing about it is it's actually being presented in a black box theater. So it has more of a theatrical vibe to it instead of the traditional, movie theater feeling. And I love that because my background is from theater, so it's kind of reminiscing for me. And then we're also going to have, so the main entrance walks into a theater space, and that's where all the main seating is and all the screens. And then we're having a breakout room or a side room where there'll be, like movie snacks and things like that. But it's also going to be a meet and greet for all of the producers and directors and actors in films. So the way that we have it currently set is it's from 1 to 9 p.m. that same day. We're going to screen everything, and there will be a break in the middle of the day so that everyone can head into Warwick because it's a super cute, quaint little historical town, and grab their dinners if they want and then come back. And then the last hour is the award ceremony. Our plan is to have so that way people can come for the morning or they come for the afternoon or both. But the award ceremony is for Best Picture. Basically, all of our categories will receive their award that day, but we're also doing an audience award for Best Picture, and that's actually who will pick the best film. It will not be our judges. And we like that because it's going to be the audience's choice. I've seen all the films already. I'm not a judge for any of the categories, but I've seen them as the director, and we're still accepting films, by the way. And we, and the films are amazing, and I think that there's a wide variety of films. There's currently, it looks like there's about 4 or 5 films in every single genre that are going to be selected, possibly more, depending on how our submission looks. But our goal in this is to make it so that people don't have to pick which genre they go to. That they're going to go, say they're going to support a horror film, but they support their horror film. They see a number of other horror films because it'll be kind of in a block time, but then they are willing to stay and see the comedies so that they can meet other kinds of filmmakers and they can meet other people that do this. And maybe there's a future of a comedy and a horror film mixed together that we don't know is going to happen, And our hope is that it is a festival that embraces filmmaking, not by its genre, but in general filmmaking. And it's going to create all these new networks and all these new pathways for so many people. And that's why it's structured the way that it is. I've been to a number of festivals, and probably the thing that I enjoyed the most at those is often the opening night networking event where you go and you meet all the filmmakers. You haven't even seen their work yet, but you just go meet all these people. And to me, that is the most inspiring part. You get to talk to people about their ideas and who they are and what they've done and where they're going. But you'd never see their work because you're only there to see the film you're associated with. And so we want to take those two things and put it together. And so that's to me, that's what's beautiful about this is you're going to have an opportunity to see all these people's work and still communicate and network and talk to them and celebrate each other and what you've created. It's, filmmaking is a really hard industry and a hard life. And to be able to celebrate each other's work is so incredibly needed. So I think that's what I'm the most excited about is it's this network and this sort of bond we're going to form with all these filmmakers. And I hope that they all form it with each other as well.
Now, so as another filmmaker, by the way, that sounds absolutely amazing because I am yes, I like horror, but I love action. I love comedies. I love thrillers. So if I went to a film festival, I would like to see a little bit of a variety.
Right?
Because, watching 6 horror movies back to back might be overkill for me. But yes. Okay. So, but as a filmmaker, do you ever watch other people's films and be like, whoa? I'm not gonna say I want to steal that idea from them or that technique, but I'm gonna steal it.
Yeah, you're gonna steal it. Yes, I am actually one of those people that takes notes. I have a little notebook that travels with me whenever I'm at anything, basically. And if I see an angle or an idea or a story or all those different aspects, all of a sudden you'll see me pull out my little notebook and some of it is just because we have our own ideas and our own thoughts, but somebody else out there has their own ideas and their own thoughts, and you might be like, wow, that was I would never in my wildest dreams have come up with that, and that was so cool. And I'm currently working on this film, and I was trying to figure out how to make this scene work, and that's how I'm going to make it work. It's never going to be exactly the same. So as much as we say we are stealing an idea, we're stealing a concept, we're not taking their story and remaking it, right? We're taking an angle or a shot or a twist and applying it to what we're working on. And so to me, that's shared concepts or that's shared ideas. And that's part of the networking, right? Is you get to be like, oh, I steal a ton of ideas all the time because people are brilliant. So who's to say somebody doesn't do the same for my work?
Plus, I can listen. I've seen people steal from my channel. I don't see it as stealing. I'm like, oh, I'm actually honored that someone actually
that they liked how you did it.
Yes, I like that I did something and they took it and spun it their way. Yep. I mean, listen, I take it as a pat on the back. I'm like, okay, I must be doing something right. This people are inspired by something that I do.
Yeah, it means that you touched them. It means that they're connected to it. It means they've felt something.
Yes. Now, if I catch somebody saying, "Hi, welcome to the horror room. This is Travis Bruce," now that's stealing.
That is yes, that is stealing because that's actually stealing what you're doing.
All right. So, by the way, so if there's filmmakers and they want to go ahead and submit their film, how would they go by doing it?
So we are currently still accepting films through June 28th. So we're getting very close to that final cutoff. It's 25 minutes or under for films, and they would do it through Film Freeway. Mm-hmm. And if they want a discount code, they could just hit me up on any of my socials. Because as the director, I do get that privilege that I get to hand out some discount codes for waivers and allow them to get a little bit of a financial break, because we would rather see good filmmaking in our festival than having people break the bank or choose not to put it in because they spent all their money in post-production. So we're not giving it to anyone for free, but what we are doing is saying we're happy to give you a discount because we want to see your work. We want it to be showcased. We want it to be celebrated. So the easiest way to get my discount codes is to hit me up on my socials, but it is active. It is up in Film Freeway.
Awesome. Now, you might be a director, like you said, you've seen some of the films. Have any of them blown you away so far?
Yes, some of them have.
In horror, all genres, or?
There is. I haven't seen all the horror films. So the horror ones I've seen so far, I've very much enjoyed, and I think that they have some interesting, unique takes, but they haven't knocked me on the floor yet. It takes a lot for that to happen. But there is a drama that I saw that I watched 3 times because I was like, wow. And some of it was because it was cinematically beautiful. It would just, the way that it all came together. It was almost like it was a piece of art in motion, essentially. It was like this start to finish, clearly planned out, clearly some sort of an artist or a mover. It almost felt like the film just went like that, you just moved along with it. And you're like, how did you do that? So anytime something like that happens, I'm always like, I don't know how you did that, but that was so cool. So that happened in a drama for me. I will say that I laughed at 90% of the comedy films that I've seen so far, and that's always good.
That's always good.
Yes. That we actually have a music video category as well, and there's a music video in there that I found myself singing singing the song after, so that it's good when that happens. But we actually just got a bunch of new submissions in, so I haven't seen those yet. But there's actually an action film that I was like, oh, I wish I was in that. And so that's a good reaction too. So, obviously you have different reactions to every genre and every story. But to me, if you make me want to watch it again, or you're making me laugh out loud, or you're making me be like, oh, I wish I was in that film, that is a good thing. So.
What the fuck did I just watch?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. I had to think for a second. Not yet.
I'm not saying a bad way. I'm not saying a bad way, but whoa, what was that?
Yes. Yeah. Not yet, but I will tell you that we do have 2 student categories. So one is general student films, and then we have one that's high school and under. Because like I mentioned earlier, the film festival is giving 10% of the proceeds to 3 Chicks FLICKS. And because of that, 3 Chicks FLICKS actually asked and said, listen, one of our things is that we're about creating the next generation. The groups that we're working with in the schools are middle school and high school. It's not, in all honesty, it's hard to compare a middle schooler's filmmaking skills to a college student, So what if we were to create, or would you be willing to create, if they wanted to, submit to the general student film, they could. But what if we created an option for the younger filmmakers, so that it's just a little bit more on the fair side, right? Because middle schoolers are not getting Red Dragon cameras unless it's, so there's stuff like that too, that you have to put that into perspective. And the film festival the film festival director or executive producer said, absolutely, this is a great idea. So I will say there's 3 films so far submitted in that category, and they're really good. They're really good. But of course, if you also have to take into perspective of like this is filmed by a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old. So when you look at it that way, they're very good. But when you look big picture, if you don't keep that in mind, you might be like, I don't know. And it's all a perspective. And so that's why I say, like, so far, no, as long as you're keeping yourself in perspective of what you're watching.
Gotcha. Like, no, but I mean, cause I do movie reviews every once in a while. Someone will send me a movie, and I'm like, "What did I just watch?" Like, like I mean, the last one I just did an interview with the author. There's this filmmaker named Gorilla Metropolitana, and he sent me his short film that's not out yet. It's called Corporate Torment, and I literally watched it, and I was like, I don't know how to feel. I feel disgusted, and I feel weird, but I actually enjoyed it, and it was beautiful at the same time. I'm like, I'm having so many different feelings right now. I don't know.
Isn't that
what
the
I
beautiful thing about filmmaking, though? Is that like it can give you all of that?
Yes.
And that was probably what they wanted. They wanted to make you feel confused.
Yes, I got completely confused. I was like, this is beautiful but disgusting at the same time.
Yes.
So Danielle, we're going to shoot to you're also acting. You're in a film that's called The Art of a Thespian. Tell us a little bit about your role in The Art of a Thespian.
Yes. So The Art of a Thespian is a psychological thriller, and I was brought onto the cast about a month and a half ago, and it is a short film, and it is coming through the eyes of two young men who have had a passion for filmmaking for their entire lives, and they're both college age young men, and so people have kind of written them off and said, you're not going to be able to make films unless you're like in film school or whatever. And they both kind of said, no, like, we love doing this. And they've made a lot of little bits and bobs through the years together. And they, have teamed up, and they have created this story that embodies theater and filmmaking and the psychological things that happen to you as an actor. And the reason that I even like signed on to this project is I felt drawn to it as I started on stage. I was an actor, I did music theater, I was a dancer, and I knew that bubble and that world, and to create those stories. And then I transitioned to film and television, and for me, it was very personal. Like, the story is personal. I understand the story better than I probably should. And I think that this is a story that needs to be told. It is kind of an homage to Heath Ledger, to, Robin Williams, to these amazing characters who are amazing people, and people that played amazing characters whose lives ended too early. And I don't want to give away the story too much, but what I will say is that it touches on something in being an actor and a filmmaker that no one is talking about, and no one is bringing forth in an artistic way, and they are going to do it. They actually just did a huge crowdfunding, and actually today, right before I walked in, they sent the cast a message saying that they were at 100% funded. And we were at our final table read last night. And last night we were at 80%, so we had been greenlit. And right before I walked in, like I said, we were 100% funded. And so they're excited, and we're all excited. And I think this is a film that's a story that's important to tell. And it is going to make you walk away going, what did I just watch? Right? We were just talking about that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And my character in it is a, strong supporting character. I play Sarah, the female casting director, and I'm going to kind of leave it at that. But she is strong. She's been in the business for a while, and she certainly has her thoughts and her opinions. So it is a film that people need to keep their eyes open for. And I think it's going to make people stop and think, or at least that's what I hope it does. I think that people are, especially people in this business, are going to connect to it. And I think this is an incredible way for these two young men to introduce themselves into the professional world of filmmaking. This is definitely a level up from a student film for them. Even though one of them is in college and can qualify as a student, I think that this is at a different level than that. It is going to hold its own in the professional world. And I honestly, I can't wait to see what happens. We start filming in 2 weeks, and we have some, production stuff that's going on over the next 2 weeks. And we met last night. We met about half of the crew. There was more crew than actors. So they have a huge team and a supportive team and people that believe in them. And the actors that are in this project are really good, and they're solid. Many of them have been working in the business for a long time, and those that haven't are willing to learn and grow and be pushed. They want to be pushed. And that, to me, as an actor, like, I'm not attached to it as a producer or anything outside of being an actor, and I feel so connected and so grateful that I'm being brought in and being a part of the journey. And the creators of this are really, like, keeping us a part of that. Like, they're keeping us a part of the creation. They're keeping us a part of what their mission is. They're making sure that we are all incredibly comfortable and that we all get what each other is having to do. And that not all filmmakers do that. And so, one of the things that has happened to me in my life is that I, in New York, about 6.5 years ago, I was in New York. I was working as a filmmaker, an actor, and I was kind of on my rise, shall we say. And I fell in love, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I need a break. I got married and had 2 kids. I took 6 years off in the business. I did not touch a script. I did not go on set. I did not go to a single acting class. I did nothing in the arts for 6 years. And of course, right before the strike hit last year, some part of me said, my kids are just old enough that I feel comfortable, leaving them with my husband or with aunts and uncles and cousins and all the things so that I can go and be creative, because I felt a part of me was missing. And I came back into the business, and Danny from Three Chicks FLICKS actually hired me in my first film back after taking my break. And, since then I got the bug back in me to be creative and be a part of people's journey. But when I was in New York, I was taking anything and everything, every single gig. I dealt with casting couches. I dealt with horrible, horrible human beings, but some great people too. But I was willing to put up with it. And I was willing to go through unprofessional circumstances. And I was like, this is my dream. I'm going to do this. And when I came back, I told myself, I am married. I have kids. I have a whole life that I've created for myself. So this time I'm doing it on my terms. And I'm only going to work with people that are professional. I'm only going to work on scripts that I want to be a part of. I'm only going to work on things that are important to me and that are either going to move my career forward or help me feel creatively fulfilled. And so I've done that. Like, I've held true to that in the last 1.5 years. And thankfully, I worked fairly often through the strike. I was able to create a number of different projects and films. But the things that I'm the most proud of in the last 1.5 years are the things that have creatively fulfilled me. And this project is one of those films. Even though my character may not be, like the bee's knees as far as like super over the top and this and that, and like I'm definitely not going to win an Oscar for it. But it's an important character to the story, and it is an important story that's being told. And the people that are a part of this are professional and really just wonderful people. And so to me, that's part of why I'm part of this, and more than happy to push it and promote it and be a part of that journey, because this is how filmmaking should be. Maybe there isn't tons and tons and tons of money behind it, but they're going to make it work. They believe in it. They have people behind them that believe in it. They have a vision. They're seeing it through, and they're telling a story that needs to be told. So, that's why I say, it's not a huge thing, but people are going to notice them when it comes out. And I hope this is their moment. I am happy to push them and say, this is it. Like, you are going to break into this business and take it by storm, because you've done your homework. You've done it the right way. You've been kind. You've been nice. You've been supportive and professional. And so this film is all of those things for me, but it tells a story, and more importantly, it tells a story of things that happen to actors, and the world needs to hear it. So,
I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Sorry, I just like
no, that was a great speech, and I'm glad you were able to share that.
Thank you.
I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
Danielle. I'm gonna try to say it with a straight face, but when do you sleep? I mean, listen. You're a wife. You're a mom. You're an actor. You're a filmmaker. You're doing the director with the film festival. When do you sleep? I mean, your brain must be running a billion seconds all the time.
It is, and believe it or not, I also juggle a full-time job. So right. Yes, I have to say that I've been blessed to have an incredibly supportive family. My husband is a believer in following your dreams, and he has very much said, do what you need to do. As long as you give me more than 24 hours notice of, if you have to run off to rehearsal or you have to run to a meeting or whatever. So he is certainly the strength that helps keep me going. My full-time job is actually that I work for a not-for-profit, and I build and develop programming for children and families to help them live healthier and better lives. And because of that, I have had to learn how to manage non-for-profits. I've had to learn how to build something from scratch and learn to market it and find the funding and do all of these different bits and bobs. And I have been doing it for a long time. And because of that, I'm able to take all those skills and apply it to being a producer. And I'm able to take all those skills and apply it to being a fundraiser. And I will say that in a way it's great because they kind of work simultaneously. They're similar stories, they're similar passions. But on the creative side, it feels really good to take something that I have made a living doing and put it into the creative bubble that that I'm creating with my production company, with the film festival, with all the films that I work on. I love telling stories, and I love helping create the vision that it takes to make that story a reality. And that's part of what keeps me going. So my regular job has taught me how to juggle all the balls in the air and, not let them fall. And hopefully, occasionally they do, but hopefully I know what to do if they do, right? And I'm taking all of those things and applying it to the creative bubble that my life has become, right? Like, okay, play date is this. Okay, that ends at this time. And, I'm one of those people that has to write everything down. And, obviously, eventually it's going to get harder for a little while until I find whatever that new balance is. But I do think that with creativity comes change as well. So as the change comes, you have to be willing to accept it and look at what that looks like. And I think if you can't do that, you can't juggle all the balls. You can't keep it all going. And, thankfully, I actually get some sleep.
because I even tell people with my interviews, I do this a lot more than people think. I do this every day, interviews, and a lot of times I'm up till 11 o'clock at night, PM, doing interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
And I take breaks, of course. I take breaks, but once and it's probably a lot of creators. Once you can't take a too long of a break because your skills become dull.
Yes.
Like if I take a couple of weeks off from doing an interview, and I've done it before, it takes a good week, a week and a half for me to get back into that flow and feel comfortable with doing an interview again.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like exercising, right? Like if you get yourself in a good routine and you work out regularly, you feel good. You've got those endorphins and you know your routine and you know approximately how long it takes you to do it. You take vacation, you're off for 2 weeks. You're like, it's fine. My body needs a break. It takes so much to get back in.
To drag back in.
Yeah. And you know that it's for the good, and you know that the break is needed to some degree, but taking too long a break makes it even harder. And I wholeheartly agree, which I think was part of why I was hesitant about even coming back into the business, having taken so many years off. But a part of me just said, part of you is missing. Find a way to get back in. And thankfully, Danny hired me on my first film back. And I actually filmed and did ADR sessions when I was 9 months pregnant with my first child.
Wow.
Yes. So it's an interesting kind of thing where it's like I fell in love, I got married, and I slowed down a little, but I didn't stop completely, was pregnant. And then a film that I had been working on with another filmmaker was in production when I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to safely film this. And, and then we got through it. And by the time it was ready for any of the ADR sessions, I was like, wow, I'm like 9 months pregnant working on this movie. I don't think this is a great idea if I want to have more kids. I need a break. I need to give my body, let my body focus, let my body do that. And that's kind of what I did. I put my family first. And I said, I will give this to my family. I will be mom. I will have all the kids. And then when they're old enough and they can really express themselves and they can communicate well, and I'm starting to get sleep again, I want to find my outlet back in. And and thankfully my husband's like, yeah, just audition, see what happens. Because I was telling him, I was like, a part of me doesn't feel right. Like I feel whole and complete. Like I love my life. I love my family. I was like, but part of me is missing. And he's like, you have been on stage your entire life. Like, duh, part of you is missing. And so, he was the one who kind of said, just try, see what happens. And I booked this gig and look at where it, brought me all this time later. And what's interesting is right before I left was when I produced my very first film. And I literally said to myself, I will never do this again. And it was because it was so incredibly stressful, and the amount of work and the amount of money and the amount of promises and just so much. It took so much to make that film. And it ended up being a beautiful film, and I'm very proud of it. And it holds a very special place in my heart. But after it was over, I was like, I can't do that and all these things. And so I didn't think I was even going to come back in as a producer. But what I found was that as an actor, it's personally fulfilling for me. But as a producer, it is fulfilling in a different way, if that makes sense. It's like you start with the story from the very beginning and you see it all the way through, and then you get to see its final product, and you see the world's reaction or the people's reaction that get to finally see it. And you get to stand there proud and say, I was there from the beginning. And that's a different thing than being an actor. As an actor, you're often hired to play a role, right? You build this character, you create this character, you become this character, which is its own art in of itself. And you see that character through and make sure that character is telling their part of the story. And that's a beautiful thing too. But they're two very different creative arcs. And so I find that if I can't act, I want to produce, and I want to help guide, and I want to help build and create in that way. But if I get to be an actor on it, even better. So that's, for me, it's that I have to do it or I don't feel good, and I don't feel complete, and I don't feel, that I've done what I need to do in this world, if that makes sense. So I feel go ahead.
I was about to say, but do you feel like a little bit of you crave the stress and the chaos?
Yes, wholeheartedly. Yes. But what I will say, I mean, it is stress and it is chaos and all of those things. But one thing that's different this time around was that I have business partners. I have these two absolutely incredible women that work alongside me with 3 Chicks Flicks. And literally our group text is chaos. It's, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? But it's like an ongoing conversation. And that's one thing that's great about technology these days. 6 years ago, this was not a thing. You had to sign in and get on your messenger and do all that. Mm-hmm. But now, we've got Instagram and TikTok and all these things that are in a way like easy promotion to some degree, right? Still have to get the views, still have to get the likes, still get the follows, but it's a platform for you to put your information out there, and you can share it and you can do all these things. And because of that, the producing side is somewhat easier than it was 6 years ago, where those things were new or not even available yet. And with a team of people, it's a lot easier to be a solo producer on something where you carry all that weight by yourself, and literally the production could fall apart because of you, that's more than I can bear now with all of my life
Yeah.
responsibilities. But with Art of a Thespian, like I said, I was brought in as an actor. I'm still as an actor on their project, but I feel like I'm part of it. I'm a part of that journey. And that what they're doing there is how I want my sets to feel and how I want my actors to feel. And obviously they may not be a part of the conversation right now while we're running around trying to get money, but when we bring them in and we bring those actors in, they're going to be part of that journey. And yes, they're going to tell their story. They're going to bring their part along for the journey, but I want them to love it and feel it and enjoy that journey just as much as the producers do. So,
Love it. Love it. Danielle, where can everyone find you?
my Instagram handle is DANIMHARPER, Danny M. Harper. My TikTok is MommyFit365, and you can find my fan page on Facebook for if you just type in Danielle Harper, you should be able to find it. And Three Chicks Flicks is also available on TikTok and Instagram as well as Facebook. So you can literally type in the number 3 Chicks Flicks and it'll pop up right away. And if you're interested in submitting for the film festival, please go through Film Freeway or find me on socials to get the direct link with a waiver.
Awesome. Danielle, this has been an absolute blast having you on. Listen, we covered a lot today.
We did.
A lot from this interview. All right. So everybody, okay, go ahead and follow and support Three Chicks Flicks film production. By the way, Three Chicks Flicks. That's you can't say that fast. You can't.
No, you can't. On purpose.
I know. Three Chicks Flicks film production company, as well as. Listen, if you're a filmmaker, if you actually want to go and see some film, great indie films, go and check out on Film Freeway, America's Epic Film Festival.
Yes.
Yes. And then also look out too for an amazing short thriller. Hopefully we'll see it in film festivals or soon. And it's called The Art of a Thespian. Danielle, once again, you're welcome to come on anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I will take you up on that offer most likely. And I hope that you're able to join us in some way, shape, or form at either the film festival or at one of our fundraisers. And I'll definitely keep you on the loop on our horror film festival that we're looking to produce in the fall.
Awesome. Now, do you do everything in New York or do you go down anywhere else on the East Coast?
The film company is based we're based in New Jersey. Okay. The film festival and the film company the film company is based in Jersey as well. The film festival is in New York right now, but we are looking to expand. We are going to look at, Danny and I work on the film festival together. We're both a part of that. So she and I are going to look at doing a short horror film festival in Southern Jersey this year. And then we're looking to expand and go a slightly farther south outside of Jersey and move down the coast a little bit, down the East Coast. We haven't decided exactly where, but we are looking to potentially expand out beyond that as well. Because, we just love filmmaking and we love being able to create a platform for people's work to be seen. And so if we're able to do that in any way, shape, or form, we want to be able to do that. And we want the stories to be told. And we know that there's a lot of people besides in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area that have work to be seen. So I will say that the film festival, though it's being hosted in New York, we're calling this our big festival. Mm-hmm. This is our big shebang. This is the red carpet. You get to wear 1920s clothes if you want to. Nice. That one. I'm so excited. That one is in New York, and part of that is due to the proximity to the city. There's a lot of film schools there. There's a lot of filmmakers there. And we have an amazing connection with the community center there, and they're the people allowing us to use their black box theater. So as our company builds and grows, we are 100% open to people. If anyone is on the East Coast, especially, if anyone says, hey, we have a great space, would you put on a film festival for us? We would wholeheartedly look at that and really consider. Space is the hardest part, to be honest, for us at least, especially going to another place outside of where we live. But the films that have come in so far are all over the US. Literally, like we got a film, we have 3 films that just came in from LA. We have a film that came in from Las Vegas. So we're not sure if their filmmakers are going to come or not. But regardless, like we're gonna actually videotape everything because we want them to see their success, just in case they can't come. So filmmakers galore, right? Like, come be a part of the journey. Message me. Let's talk shop. Let's talk about scripts. Let's whatever. And then also another thing, just to point out really quick, is for 3 Chicks Flicks in 2025, we are going to start accepting screenplays. So if a woman is out there that wrote something that wants to see if they can get it made, or at least want it reviewed by a production company, we are going to start accepting those and looking at those in 2025. So be on the lookout, find us, follow us. We are
I already got somebody for you, by the way. I really do.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yes. I love it. So yes, please follow us. And thank you so very much for having me on.
No problem at all. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Danielle Harper. We'll see you next time. Take care.